Good morning. Welcome to this live coverage of the 12th Parliament, the 5th session. Today is the National Assembly on this first day of December 2021. This sitting comes just hours after the President addressed the nation. And this morning, the members will be debating that speech. There are documents, reports that the President did submit and handed them over to the Speaker. And the content of that speech will be debated. A motion will be moved by the leader of the majority party that the thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President delivered in Parliament on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021, and further that this House notes the report submitted by His Excellency the President, which are laid on the table of the House this morning. This broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The President presented the 8th annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132, subsection 1C of the Constitution. The President also submitted the 8th annual report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132, subsection 1C of the Constitution. He also submitted the annual report to Parliament on the state of national security, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 240, subsection 7 of the Constitution, and the Kenya Business Climate Reforms Milestones Report for the year 2020-2021. The members of Parliament will be debating the President's address. And pursuant to the provisions of the standing orders, the debate on the President's address should not go for more than 4 days. The member for Kuresoi South, Honorable Joseph Tonui, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Transport and Infrastructure 3 questions. And so will some members as well who have ordinary questions to ask various government departments, of course, through the departmental committees. The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Cheboy, will be presiding over the business of the National Assembly this morning.
Wajumbe, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi tutazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri hii yetu. Twakuomba ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Order, members. We do not have the required quorum, so therefore I order the bell to be rung for 10 minutes.
There is lack of quorum, and as we wait for the quorum to be achieved, we'll take a look at some of the business that the members will be engaging in this morning in the National Assembly. The member for Kuresoi South, Honorable Joseph Tonui, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Transport and Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development to explain the reasons for the delayed construction of Lelechwet Cheram Bridge in Kuresoi South constituency since 2017. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the total cost of the project, the amount paid to date, and the outstanding amount? And could the Cabinet Secretary also explain the scope of works which is yet to be completed, state when construction of the project will resume, and provide the expected completion timelines? The question by the Honourable Member for Kuresoi South will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. The member for Lamu County, Honorable Rueda Obo, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife to provide a status report on the incidences of invasion by wildlife in Shela area in Lamu County, and what steps is the ministry taking to protect the residents from the recent invasion by hippopotamus and lions. The question by the Honourable Member for Lamu County, Honourable Rueda Obo, will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. The member for Kibwezi West, Honourable Dr. Patrick Musimba, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Energy to provide details of power supply and connectivity to gazetted polling stations and tallying centers across the country in preparation for the next year's general election. And also, could the Cabinet Secretary state the measures that the ministry has put in place, if any, to ensure alternative power connectivity and supply to polling and tallying centers in the event of power blackouts during the forthcoming general election? The question by the Honourable Member for Kibwezi West will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. The member for Mwingi North, Honourable Paul Nzengu, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government to report on the status of investigations into the cause of death of the late Mr. Mua Muthengi, a prison warden who was stationed at the Thika prisons and mysteriously died on 13th October 2021, as reported at the Thika police station. And could the Cabinet Secretary explain or indicate whether any suspects have been apprehended or questioned in connection with the said death? The question by the Honourable Member for Mwingi North will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. The member for Mwala, Honourable Engineer Vincent Musyoka, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Labour and Social Protection about the measures the ministry has put in place to ensure that all the eligible older persons who have attained the age of 70 years and above in Mwala constituency are enrolled into the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program. The question by the Honourable Member for Mwala constituency will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Labour and Social Welfare. The member for Gilgil constituency, Honourable Martha Wangari, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government about the status of investigations into the disappearance of Mr. Boniface Njuguna Ndungu, a businessman and resident of Gilgil constituency who was kidnapped in Churo area, Baringo County, on 31st of August 2021 while sourcing for chicken for his business, as reported at the Gilgil Police Station on 17th of September 2021 in the occurrence book. And have there been any arrest of those involved in the disappearance, particularly the suspect or suspects who allegedly demanded for a ransom for the release of Mr. Juguna on 2nd September 2021, but later reneged on grounds that the incident was a revenge mission? The question by the Honourable Member for Gilgil will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. The member for Ketui County, Honourable Dr. Irene Kasalu, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Education what is the implementation status of the government's policy on sex education in schools across the country, and particularly schools in Ketui County. What measures has the ministry put in place to address the high need for sexual and reproductive health education and information among students, particularly the adolescents? The question by the Honourable Member for Ketui County will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. The members are making their way into the chamber to help achieve quorum. The number required for business of the National Assembly to begin the sitting is 50. So the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly did order that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes so that respective leadership of the House can mobilize their members who are within the precincts of Parliament to take their place and allow the House to quorate so that business of the National Assembly can begin. Nominated Member of Parliament, Honourable Wilson Sosion, will ask the Teachers Service Commission about the policy on transfer of teachers in the country, and what is the Commission's position with regard to transfer of teachers from their stations to hardship areas as disciplinary measures to teachers who raise concerns on the welfare of teachers, including labour matters, inadequate and poor medical cover, among others, and what mechanisms has the Commission put in place to address grievances raised by teachers, particularly on teachers' welfare. The question by the Honourable Member Wilson Sosion will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. The member for Suba South, Honourable John Badi, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries to explain why MS Sukari Industries Limited has failed to promptly source sugarcane from farmers contracted by the miller and instead opted to source cane from other regions after 18 months of the cane's maturity, an irregularity which has caused untold misery and inconvenience to cane farmers in Dewa, Homa Bay County. What interventions does the ministry intend to put in place to address delays in the harvesting of cane to save farmers from the impending huge losses? What steps is the ministry taking to facilitate rehabilitation of dilapidated roads that form part of the sugarcane supply route, as well as the establishment of automated weigh bridge points in Dewa with a view of reducing transport costs and other inconveniences borne by farmers in cane delivery? The question by the Honourable Member for Suba South will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. We're waiting for quorum of the National Assembly to be achieved.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Under this particular order, we have a series of papers to be laid by the majority whip from the majority party.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the following papers will be laid on the table of the House today, on Wednesday, December 1st, 2021, this morning sitting. 1, speech by His Excellency the President on his address to Parliament on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. 2, the 8th annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. 3, the annual report on the progress made in fulfilling of the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. 4, the annual report to Parliament on the state of national security, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 240(7) of the Constitution. 5, the Kenya Business Climate Reforms Milestones Report for the year 2020-2021. 6, legal notice number 192 and legal notice 223, the tax procedures and assembled motorcycles amendment regulations 2021. 7, gazette notice number 12325 on guidelines on share buybacks for listed companies. 8, 2022 budget policy statement. 9, programs outputs, key performance indicators and set targets for financial year 2022-2023 and medium-term budget, Annex Table 4B, Volume 1 and 2. 10, 2022 medium-term debt management strategy. 11, legislative proposal for submission to Parliament on division of Revenue Bill 2022. 12, legislative proposal for submission to Parliament on county allocation of Revenue Bill 2022. 13, submission of nominees to the National Government Constituency Development Fund Committee for Ugenya constituency. 14, the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2020 and the certificates therein. A, Youth Enterprise Development Fund. B, School Equipment Production Unit. And C, Kenya Literature Bureau. 15, the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of Dagoretti North constituency for the year ended 30th June 2020 and the certificates therein. 16, the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2019 and the certificates therein. A, Belgut. B, Muhoroni. C, Kisumu West. D, Pokoti South. E, Nyakach. And F, Kasarani. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Majority whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give the following notice of motion. Debate on the President's address that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 24(6), the thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021, and further that this House notes the following report submitted by His Excellency the President, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. 1, the 8th annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. 2, the 8th annual report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. 3, the annual report to Parliament on the state of the national security submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 247 of the Constitution. And 4, the Kenya Business Climate Reforms Milestones Report for the year 2020-2021. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Under this particular order, honorable members, I am going to reorganize the questions very temporarily, that we will have the member for Kuresoi South asking his question. He comes from the Nakuru city, and followed by the member for Gilgil, because I'm informed that both of them will be going down to go and participate in the inauguration of the new city. So I will do it in that manner. So let's start with the member for Kuresoi South, Honorable Tanui.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm asking the question number 491 of 2021, and I'm directing my question to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport and Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. Question number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the reasons for the delayed construction of Lelechuet Jeram Bridge in Kuresoi South constituency since 2017? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary state the total cost of the project, the amount paid to date, and the outstanding amount? Number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary also explain the scope of works which is yet to be completed, state when the construction of the project will resume, and provide the expected completion timelines? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next is the member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the indulgence as we join the President as he delivers the charter for the 4th city in this country, Nakuru City. I rise to ask the question 512 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary, to the Departmental Committee, to the Cabinet Secretary of Administration and National Security. 1, what is the status of investigation into the disappearance of Mr. Boniface Jogonan Ndongo of ID number 201-25197, a businessman and resident of Gilgil constituency who was kidnapped in Churo area, Baringo County on 31st August 2021 while sourcing for chicken for his business, as reported in Gilgil Police Station on 17th September 2021 by occurrence book number 21/17/9 of 2021. 2, have there been any arrests of those involved in the disappearance, particularly the suspects who allegedly demanded for a ransom for the release of Mr. Njuguna on 2nd September 2021, but later alleged on the grounds that the incident was a revenge mission? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. And as you go, I hope you will be taking also apologies from the member for Kuresoi North, who is held up in Parliament. Proceed. Next is the member for Lamu, the Honorable Rueda, Captain Rueda, Abo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask question 493, 2021, to the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status report on incidences of invasion by wildlife in Shela area in Lamu County? 2, what step is the ministry taking to protect the resident from the recent invasion by hippopotamus and lions? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next is a member for Kibwezi West, the Honorable Dr. Patrick Musimba. Well, sorry. On this particular one, I'm deferring it, having been given information by the member that he wouldn't make it. And then we go to the member for Mwingi North, the Honorable Nzengu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask question number 503 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Could the Cabinet Secretary report on the status of investigations into the cause of death of the late Mr. Mugo Mothengi of ID number 27783855, a prison warden who was stationed at Thika prisons and mysteriously died on 13th of October 2021, as reported at the Thika police station via occurrence book number 126/14/10/2021. And 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain whether any suspects or indicate whether any suspects have been apprehended or questioned in connection with the said death? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, that one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. The next is a member for Mwala, the Honorable Musyoka, Engineer. Deferred. Next is a member for Ketui County, the Honorable Dr. Irene Kasalu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raise to ask question number 514 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Number 1, what is the implementation status of the government's policy on sex education in schools across the country and particularly in Ketui County? Number 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to address the high need for sexual and reproductive health education and information among students, particularly the adolescents? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. So the member for Honorable Wilson Sosion. Oh, I'm informed that the Honorable Sosion, but, well, that is deferred. Well, what is it, Honorable Sosion? Okay, deferred. And then I'm consulting on something, honorable members. I am also deferring the question by the member for Suba South, the Honorable Mbadi. And I'm trying to consult on a small issue, honorable members, so kindly. Okay, so we go to the next order.
Order number 8, motion. Debate on the President's address, day 1.
Yes, let's have, that will be moved by the majority whip. I know, of course, it would have been moved by the majority leader, but he's joining us. And he will have, of course, a preferred time. So proceed, the Honorable Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 24-6, the thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021, and further that this House notes the following report submitted by His Excellency the President, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. 1. The 8th Annual Report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. The 8th Annual Report on the progress made in the fulfillment of the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya, submitted in fulfilling of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. 3. The Annual Report to Parliament on the state of national security, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 247 of the Constitution. And 4, the Kenya Business Climate Reforms Milestones Report for the year 2020-2021. Honorable Speaker, I am grateful to my colleagues that yesterday we had a very cordial interaction with the President. He delivered his 8th speech in the House. And Honorable Speaker, I must thank my colleagues for the endurance of the 2 hours and 15 minutes, a 249-page document delivered by His Excellency the President. And I must also thank him for taking time, Honorable Speaker. Most of the anchors on our national televisions normally sit down, but the President endured time, made it good, stood over, and read for us the speech, Honorable Speaker. It's something to applaud him for, and thank God that it was successful. Honorable Speaker, the message to the country was very clear. The message to the country was in black and white. And Honorable Speaker, the speech the President delivered covered a wide range of issues that he has really delivered to us to date. We look at, Honorable Speaker, on the onset, the President took cognizance of the reality. He took cognizance, Honorable Speaker, of the existence of the COVID-19 pandemic, and took us through on how, Honorable Speaker, he was able to handle the COVID-19 situation, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the address of the speech of the President, as he put it on the 30th of November 2021, he welcomed the Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the 30th of November 2021, we welcomed the President to fulfill his constitutional duty under Article 132, 1B of the Constitution, which required that the head of state, Honorable Speaker, once every year address a special sitting of Parliament. In respect to such address, Honorable Speaker, the Constitution requires the President, among other things, to report on measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of the national values referred to in Article 10 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, B, it also requires his submission of a report to debate in the National Assembly on the progress made in fulfillment of the international obligation to the Republic. Honorable Speaker, yesterday, the President addressed this House on several critical matters of the state. I have summarized them as follows, Honorable Speaker. 1, the COVID-19 pandemic and the role the government has played in combating the effects of the pandemic and the lifting of the containment measures, Honorable Speaker. 2, the government progress in achieving the national transformative agenda and economic development. C, the progress made in fulfillment of Kenya's international obligations and cooperation with our international partners. D, the big push investment, Honorable Speaker, enlarged road network, 10,500 kilometers of roads built across the Republic since 2013, nearly matching the mileage of 11,200 kilometers of tarmac roads built by all his predecessors. In the colonial government, Honorable Speaker, the Jomo Kenyatta, Honorable Daniel Moi, and Honorable Mwai Kibaki. Honorable Speaker, the standard gauge railway was also captured. Ongoing Nairobi Expressway was captured, that being the dual carriage from Rironi to Mau Summit. Honorable Speaker, household connection to power estimated to 6.3 million. Honorable Speaker, there is also the issue of the role of Parliament in assisting government achieve its agenda, especially the Big Four towards the ultimate realization of Vision 2030. Improved healthcare, Honorable Speaker, the object is to have 100% universal healthcare by 2022, increased KMTC campuses from 28 in 2013 to 71 in 2022, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is the issue of Linda Mama program introduced in 2016, which has increased birth and reduced maternal mortality rates, which has so far benefited 5,843,307 women. Honorable Speaker, there is also the issue of the political stability. He stated that as a country must break cycle of poll chaos that the nation has experienced since 1992 with lost lives, population displaced, lost economic growth, and 2017 nullification of presidential election leaders. In brackets, Honorable William Ruto, Raila Odinga, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi should not tell the country back such days, but rather focus development projects. On devolution, Honorable Speaker, the national government has disbursed estimated 2.44 trillion to county governments over the last 8 years. Honorable Speaker, resolve on devolution, Honorable Speaker, resolve the constitutional dilemma facing our country. Attempt by Building Bridges initiative to enhance the devolution dream was shattered. This denied the Kenyans an increased county allocation from the current 15% to 35%. Nakuru town, Honorable Speaker, becomes the 4th city today, and we all celebrate, as you sit on the chair, Honorable Speaker, you are a member of Nakuru County, and we also celebrate you for the achievement, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, of importance to this House is the bills that the President requested that we fast track, since they are of significant contribution to the development and betterment of our great republic. These bills, Honorable Speaker, include the Huduma Bill, which institutionalizes the reform on the national identity system. B, Political Parties Amendment Bill 2021. C, Political Parties Membership Regulations 2021. D, Government Contracts Bill. E, Kenya National Blood Transfusion Bill 2020. F, Irrigation Amendment Bill 2021. G, Kenya National Library Service Bill 2020. H, Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Amendment Bill 2021. Honorable Speaker, on government's progress in achieving the national transformative agenda and economic development. 4, Honorable Speaker, despite the effect of the pandemic, the President demonstrated to us that it is not all doom and gloom. The President was also keen to address the nation on the status of the government's national transformative agenda and economic development. The President discharged his solemn constitutional duty by articulating the achievements of the government under the Big Four agenda. The President stated that Big Four is an agenda which is anchored on 4 intentions which the government pursues relentlessly. The first thing being, Honorable Speaker, the liberating the urban dwellers from poverty of dignity caused by poor housing and inadequate services. Second, Honorable Speaker, is the transitioning young people from being just earners of wages to owners of capital. And third, Honorable Speaker, is ensuring food safety and security. And finally, Honorable Speaker, to jumpstart our economy from a consumption-based economy to production-based economy. Honorable Speaker, it's not news that some Kenyans are living deplorable conditions and many do not have basic needs. That is food and shelter. The President recounted, Honorable Speaker, these challenges as the foundation for this development agenda. In respect to housing, the government has made key milestones. The pilot housing project, Honorable Speaker, was the Park Road project, which was delivered ahead of schedule and within budget. Additionally, Honorable Speaker, the government also concluded last year the incorporation and successful capitalization of the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Corporation, which is aimed at improving, Honorable Speaker, mortgage affordability, increasing the number of qualifying borrowers, and results in the expansions of the primary mortgage market and home owners in Kenya, while also deepening the capital markets through large-scale, medium, long-term refinance options. Honorable Speaker, the President also highlighted about the reforms that have been achieved in the land sector, especially the processes of digitalization to improve access to land as a factor for development. Most critically, additionally, he addressed himself on the digitalization of the courts, full of operationalization of the small claims courts, which has seen disputes involving SMEs, Honorable Speaker, being resolved within a record of 60 days, and thus freeing up capital locked up in land disputes, Honorable Speaker, in legal disputes. Honorable Speaker, the highlight of the speech was the third economic stimulus program, which the President stated that no more locking of the economy to avoid disrupting the economic recovery witnessed after lifting the restrictions, with a third stimulus package of over 257 billion shillings as follows, Honorable Speaker. The tea subsector, aiming at safeguarding the gains made in the tea subsector, Honorable Speaker, the National Treasury will allocate 1 billion in support of fertilizer subsidy for our tea farmers. Honorable Speaker, the sugar subsector, where I belong, Honorable Speaker, in terms of farming, is aimed at safeguarding the livelihoods of the farmers within our nation's sugar belt. He directed the National Treasury to allocate an additional 1.5 billion in aid of the sugar subsector, Honorable Speaker, that will appropriate towards factories maintenance and payment of farmers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, towards the coffee subsector, he acknowledged the pace of the ongoing reforms on the subsector, and he directed the National Treasury to allocate 1 billion to the Ministry of Agriculture to be appropriated towards completion of the ongoing targeted interventions in the coffee subsector. Honorable Speaker, on the livestock sector, the President noted that the effects of the ongoing drought situation, and in that regard, that he directed that the National Treasury to allocate 1.5 billion in support of the communities affected by the ongoing drought in the ASAL counties as part of our National Livestock Offtake Program. Additionally, in a bid to secure a reduction in the prices of animal feeds, he directed that the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, jointly with the National Treasury, to issue a framework that will facilitate the reduction of the cost of animal and chicken feeds. Honorable Speaker, in respect to education, the President noted that the success of his administration's policy on 100% transition from primary to secondary education, he directed that the National Treasury will allocate 8 billion shillings to the Ministry of Education for the CBC infrastructure expansion program. Honorable Speaker, as pertains to the matters of health, he suggested that to increase access to medical coverage across our nation, and as part of our universal health coverage program, he directed that the Ministry of Health to establish an additional 50 new level 3 hospitals and be situated in uncovered areas and densely populated areas across our nation, and further directed that the National Treasury to allocate 3.2 billion for immediate construction of the medical facilities. On matters of national sanitation, Honorable Speaker, the President recounted that this program started to harness the energy for the young people and to give them a buffer against COVID-related unemployment. He noted that success of Kazi Mtaani program and its effect in enhancing opportunities for the youth across the country. He directed that the National Treasury will allocate 10 billion for the third phase of the Kazi Mtaani program. In respect to energy, Honorable Speaker, and petroleum, he appreciated the positive strides made in our economic recovery. The gains stand the risk of being eroded by high energy prices. To address the plight of our people, he indicated that the fuel and energy prices to be reviewed by December 2021. Honorable Speaker, on banking, he addressed himself to the transformation of our economy and the emergence of our nation as a financial hub is because of the efficiency secured by technology. He also, Honorable Speaker, spoke about the effects of the moratorium on listing on CRB for a period of 12 months to end September 2022 with a capping of 5 million shillings and the positive effects this will contribute to growth of a small business. Honorable Speaker, digital financial services, he recognized the importance of digital financial services, especially, Honorable Speaker, to the small-scale traders and the household at large, reviewed the Kenya shillings 1 million shilling ceiling on deposits and withdrawals. Honorable Speaker, vaccine production, on vaccine production, Honorable Speaker, in respect to this, the President indicated the importance of the vaccines in curbing certain diseases. And Honorable Speaker, the underlying message from the President to this House is that we need to support the government in a bid to achieving its vision under the Big Four agenda. In many instances, Honorable Speaker, in the speech, the President lauded the efforts of this House in supporting the executive's efforts thus far. I would also like to encourage members that be vigilant in the fight against the pandemic to ensure safety of ourselves and that of our loved ones. Honorable Speaker, I hope this House continues to support the executive in achieving the government's agenda. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move and ask my very good friend, the Honorable Muturi Kigano, my Chair of Justice and Legal Affairs, to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Actually, without knowing, you've helped the House because Honorable Muturi Kigano was going to be among the 3 chairs. That's the Chair, Justice and Legal Affairs, Chair, Security, and Foreign Affairs. Those 3 were going to be the first to contribute because they are most of what is being done is directly touching their committees. So you have actually saved us that trouble. And Honorable Muturi Kigano, when you do it now, make sure you encompass everything, including what you are supposed to do as the Chair of Justice and Legal Affairs. What did you say there, Honorable Kigano? What did you say? 2 bites? You have all the bites, I can assure you. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to give brief comments on the State of the Nation address and to second the majority whip in this motion. Mr. Speaker, I wish in the outset to herald and laud His Excellency the President for the getting time and the expounding the government's able considerations for the concern, the interaction on social contract. And in this respect, as a committee, we commend His Excellency for complying with the constitutional imperatives under Article 132. He has done that fully throughout his tenure of office. That demonstrates on his part fidelity to the Constitution. And this was demonstrated when I saw two other arms of government represented by I think Mr. Ketui for the government, for the executive, and the Chief Justice. That demonstrates unity of purpose and that the government has nothing to hide. It was commendable on the part of the President to attribute just about one-third of his speech to the COVID pandemonium. This was right. All the measures that have been taken have been stated by the majority whip. I also commend His Excellency on the way he elaborated on the massive infrastructure development, particularly roads, and a new initiative on the port of Lamu to compete with Shanghai and Rotterdam, other ports that are transit ports. Equally, something that has not emerged is the benefit to be derived from the new jetty on Lake Victoria. We were informed that the barges are the in thing. This is what developed the Germany Ruhr River, the ports of Rotterdam, Antwerp, and other ports. The barges to ferry goods from far-flung areas. Now to have a jetty in Kisumu being used by barges to transport oil to Portobello in Uganda. That alleviates the time spent. Equally, the new berths that are being put up in Mombasa will effect the turnaround of ships in the port of Mombasa and alleviate the demurrage that the country is incurring. 10,500 kilometers is not a small effort that has been effected by His Excellency's government over 8 years as compared to an equal amount that was contributed by the British government and the 3 previous governments put together. They contributed about the same amount, the same length of roads. It is also commendable that the agriculture sector, the coffee, the tea, sugar, was also considered, that there are enormous investment in these sectors to reform and become conducive to farmers. Equally, the KMC, the benefits of KMC, and I remind the House that we developed the number 4 beef producing country in the world, Botswana. Botswana was developed by Kenya Meat Commission. That is why their commission there is called BMC, just like KMC here. We developed Botswana. Now Botswana is number 4 in the world. We are still lagging behind. We are not even admitted now to the European Union. Our meat is not able to access. But with this new investment in Kenya Meat Commission, now we are ready and we know that we shall be able to access those other markets. Mr. Speaker, we also heard from the mouth of His Excellency. He spoke about, very confidently spoke about his initiative in initiating the handshake between himself and Baba. That there are no illusions about this initiative. The peace that is prevailing in the country is through this handshake. it was also absolutely opportune for His Excellency to reassure the House that the BBI is not off course. That is, it will be on course very soon. And the benefits that were derivable from the BBI were also set out. Equally, for some prophets of doom, if His Excellency were to state the obvious nature, if he was to say, for some of them, even if he said the obvious, that the sun rises from the east and it sets the west, they would say, no, it rises from west and it sets in the east. These are the same, these were now disabused. These are the prophets of doom, and we are reassured by His Excellency we shall not allow them to take this country, to take it to a cynical cleansing of the footsteps of the Third Reich, Hitler, and we have started hearing certain slogans, which, in all respects, are the same pattern that Hitler and Mussolini and others, even Rwanda, used to categorize classes of people. These are the poor, these are the rich. It is the same thing we had in Rwanda, that there are cockroaches, people called cockroaches in Tutsi, and others called Hutu, who are called Hasras. We are also confident that with the State of the Nation address and the contents of the State of the Nation, we are quite on the right path to be able...
What is it, Honorable Nkatha? What's your point of order? Sorry then.
Yeah, so my point of order will be taken when she raises a point of order. I'm sure the point of order is also not traceable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm confident that with the contents of that State of the Nation, we are on the right path to be able to take on the Asian tigers. You
see, Honorable Nkatha, now that you have on your own admitted that you do not have a card, that becomes extremely difficult for me to help you. I had actually noticed you because I thought I was seeing your card. Now that it has disappeared, there is very little I can do.
I'm just about finished.
In all honesty.
So I am confident, Mr. Speaker, that with the contents of the State of the Nation, in the State of the Nation, we are right on the footsteps of the Asian tigers, and China, which was able to develop its industries within 25 years in the past. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order, honorable members, order. And therefore, I propose a question which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 24.6, the thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021, and further that this House notes the following reports submitted by His Excellency the President, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. 1, the 8th annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in realization of the national values and principles of governance submitted in fulfillment of provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. And 2, the 8th annual report on the progress made in fulfilling international obligations of the Republic of Kenya, submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) of the Constitution. 3, the annual report to Parliament on the state of the national security submitted in fulfillment of provisions of Article 247 of the Constitution. and for the Kenya Business Climate Reform Milestones Report for the year 2020-2021. So the first shot I give to the Vice Chair, Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations. And you have 10 minutes. I noticed, by the way, that the Honorable Sankoka is usually top on the list, but top on both. You're actually making a request at the same time, or you have just removed it. So proceed, because you are on both sides. So I'm going to try and follow the queue. Unfortunately, if I find that it is too skewed on one side, I probably will have to look the other side.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunities to also contribute to the President's speech. On behalf of the Committee of Defense and Foreign Affairs, where I serve as the Vice Chairman, Honorable Speaker, we want to appreciate the support that the President has given our committee, particularly on the bill that we had, the Foreign Service Bill, which was assented into by the President, and we are grateful that he did it in a record time. Honorable Speaker, this is one such bill which has been pending for eternity. It's a bill which has been in the works for more than 30 years, Honorable Speaker, and we believe that by having it assented to by the President, as a country now we have a career path which can be explained both by the civil servants and the career diplomats, and anybody who is interested in understanding the foreign policy of the country, Kenya, will be able to pick it up and develop on that, and also ensure there is professionalism in the way we handle our foreign policy issues, Honorable Speaker. The bill, in many ways, Honorable Speaker, tries to explain what it takes for one to grow through the system. It also tries to explain the pillars of foreign policy of the country, Kenya, because we appreciate as a committee, Honorable Speaker, that that which is not measurable cannot be rewarded. And we figured out that the best way to do and address that anomaly which we have had over the years is to come up with the Foreign Service Bill, and we are grateful to the House for the support you gave us, which gave it a good criticism, and you were able to enrich the bill and make it more acceptable, more compounding, and more enriching to serve Kenya better, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the President spoke on a number of issues, and some of the issues that he touched on, Honorable Speaker, are the foundations through which we are going to build a better Kenya tomorrow. The President spoke about the infrastructure. I'm grateful on behalf of the constituents who have been able to get the infrastructure, the tarmac, and we have seen the changes, Honorable Speaker. We have seen the benefits in those constituencies. We have seen the benefits accrued by Kenyans, Honorable Speaker, because when the roads are fixed well, the people are able to access their markets. Those of us who practice agriculture, Honorable Speaker, we are able to take our goods and services to the market in a more convenient way, hence saving on the time lost, and of course the wastage which comes by way of spoiled harvests from the farms because of the poor road network, Honorable Speaker. In Kisii particularly, and my constituency, Nyaribari Chache, we have had serious challenges, Honorable Speaker, because God has been gracious to us and he gave us a good soil and a good climate where we have a lot of rain, Honorable Speaker. And when it rains, it becomes impossible and to be able to drive through the constituents, Honorable Speaker. So the harvest from our tea farms most of the times go to spoil because we are not able to take it to the market and to the tea buying center, Honorable Speaker. So with the support of the government and the infrastructure that has been put in place, and more particularly the one which we launched a couple of months ago, I'm sure we'll address some of those challenges we've been experiencing as a constituents. And of course, the Honorable Speaker, that duplicates and replicates the entire country, Kenya. I'm sure that will help our economy to grow. Honorable Speaker, we have had in the history of Kenya
where water was, we have water security as a country, and we have had challenges with water, Honorable Speaker. Places, some parts of Kenya where water has been installed and used in a more scientific way, Honorable Speaker, the water usage has not been organized. I have in mind a case like in Kisii County, where the last time water was fixed is more than 50 years ago, when I was barely 1 year old. And the water was meant to address and help the community and the Kisii town and its environs, where the population then was about 100,000 people. But over time, Honorable Speaker, the population has grown in leaps and bounds, and now we have so many people. In a day, we have more than 1 million people, and of course, during the night, we have about 500,000 people in the CPD only. And therefore, if you factor the environs, Honorable Speaker, we have experienced water shortage in the city, and we want to thank the President for graciously granting us an opportunity and the resources to be able to upgrade the Ketui water project. In my first tenure in Parliament, the President was gracious enough to give us almost 3 billion, which upgraded the water system in Kisii town, and now the challenges of water shortage we have been experiencing is a thing of the past. And that confirms the speech of the President yesterday, because among many other things that the President spoke of having achieved, his government has achieved, is the articulation of water and ensuring that we're having a more organized system of harvesting water for the good of the country. Because water is a basic requirement, Honorable Speaker, and it's, of course, when not used well, it becomes an embarrassment to the country, and of course it affects the investors who would otherwise have come to create employment opportunity for our youth, Honorable Speaker. Among other factors which influence the investors to come to our location, Honorable Speaker, is the electricity and water supply. When we have fixed the water supply, then it's easier to negotiate with the foreigners out there, the investors out there, to come and set up the industries in the city, so that way we create employment. Honorable Speaker, the President also spoke about the electricity. We all know that we have had those electricity being given on a basis of friendship, Honorable Speaker. And we know so many families which never used the electricity. And Honorable Speaker, you are one of the friends who helped me when we had that as a concern in my constituency. Last Parliament, you accompanied me with the Minister for Energy, and we had a meeting in one of the locations in my constituency where we addressed the electricity challenges. And since you came there, we've been able to connect more than 2,000 families, and that has improved their livelihood, has improved their quality of life, Honorable Speaker, and even the children in those families are able to go to school and prepare and read and do their evening studies, preps in a more organized way, just like all other children in other parts of the country who have access to electricity, Honorable Speaker. So the President was spot on when he spoke of the electricity and the impact it has to the economy, and of course to the quality of life that Kenyans are having. Having said that, Honorable Speaker, it's not enough we should not sit back and relax and say, now we have electricity. Because, Honorable Speaker, growth is a continuous process, development is a continuous process. We should continually endeavor to upgrade the electricity to ensure that all the families which are emerging, the young men and women who are marrying, are also being connected to the national grid. It will be a twofold way, a benefit both to the economy and, of course, to Kenya Power, who will be able to get some money out of the bills we are going to pay. Honorable Speaker, even the water that the President was gracious enough to grant me to start in my constituency, Ketui Water Project, we now have a second phase, which is reticulation, ensuring that the water is piped to the household. We are engaging the Minister of Finance. We are engaging so that we can get that water now into the homes, and that way we'll be able to address the initial intent of ensuring that we have organized water into people's homes, and of course the water will be able to improve the quality of life of our people. Honorable Speaker, the President spoke of Kenya Army, and serving as the Vice Chairman of Defense and Foreign Affairs, I want to attest to it that it's true. Kenya Army is one of the most professional body we have had in this country, and the training they get as the Army officers has prepared them to serve Kenyans in a very special way.
Time is over. Now there will be, I want to mention 4 members who will be speaking in that order so that we simply move without having to waste time. That will be Honorable Sankok, Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu, Honorable Wamalwa, and Honorable Rahim. In that order, and as brief as you can.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to inject my voice on the President's speech yesterday. Honorable Speaker, and the President scored an A in terms of his legacy, Honorable Speaker, especially when it comes to the issue of infrastructure, road network, that is 10,500 kilometers of road. Everybody who have eyes knows that in every constituency in this country, there have been new tarmacs, and there is a lot of ongoing projects, Honorable Speaker, including the Nairobi Expressway and the Wayaki Way, Honorable Speaker, among others, Honorable Speaker. In Narok, we have benefited from new 350 kilometers of tarmac, Honorable Speaker, including the one of Narok to Masai Mara Siginani Road, which is 89 kilometers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in terms of electricity connectivity, in the past, Honorable Speaker, it was only the area member of parliament and a few friends and those who are known by the DC, Honorable Speaker, who could get electricity, Honorable Speaker. But now we have witnessed electricity even in our Manyatas, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you talk of fighting for the hustlers, Honorable Speaker, electricity connectivity was one of them, Honorable Speaker, where we said, even if you have a stone house, thank God, you'll enjoy the services, just like that person on Manyata, Honorable Speaker, you will also enjoy because they are all Kenyans, and Kenya belongs to all of us, not to a few individuals, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on free maternity, of course, we are witness to that, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sure if we had many members from the female gender, Honorable Speaker, they will be a witness to the free maternity, Honorable Speaker. Free education, medical equipments in our county referral hospital, Honorable Speaker, including renal dialysis material, machines, Honorable Speaker, and others, Honorable Speaker, is a test that the President actually had worked and have secured his legacy. Honorable Speaker, support to devolution, that is an increase from 15% to 32%, Honorable Speaker. I was among those who negotiated with the Senate, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sure that this one have been achieved, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the President also mentioned there was Songiro Tannery, Honorable Speaker. And annually we produce 3 million hides as pastoralists, and most of it go to waste. But now, thanks to the Songiro Tannery, where we are producing even shoes, Honorable Speaker, aware that this country import 25 million pairs of shoes annually, Honorable Speaker. We need to up that game so that we can have tanneries in every pastoral counties, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the President's legacy is so rich that even himself, he forgot a few of them, Honorable Speaker. I didn't hear him mentioning the issue of TVETs, which we have now currently more than 200 TVETs in our country. And any economy of the country will only be run by technical skills, Honorable Speaker. Because for every building, you may have one engineer and one architecture, but the technical skills are the ones that will run there in thousands, Honorable Speaker. So there is a building of construction of TVETs that are more than 200 in this country. You also forgot the issue of USO Fund, which have assisted so many other youth, Honorable Speaker. NYS, Honorable Speaker, upgrading it from 2,000 intake annually to almost 30,000 intake, Honorable Speaker, during his term. Honorable Speaker, even his legacy on disability mainstreaming, Honorable Speaker, he forgot to mention, Honorable Speaker. And his legacy is clear, because before 2013, Kenya was number 15 in terms of disability rights in Africa. But in 2017, already Kenya was number 1 in Africa, Honorable Speaker, and that is why we were able to be given an opportunity to co-host the World Disability Summit in UK together with the superpowers like United Kingdom, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that is in 2018. Honorable Speaker, economic empowerment to persons with disability like ACPO, access to government procurement opportunities where a certain percentage of tenders is set aside for persons with disability. Cash transfer, Honorable Speaker, education for persons with disability. There are a lot that the President had forgotten, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you also did mention the issue of post-election violence from 1992, 1997, 2007, 2013, and 2017, Honorable Speaker. And in fall short of explaining that when he accepted the outcome of election in 2002, we were very peaceful, yet it was a transition. So there is something, there is a trend, and there is a denominator that don't miss in the 1997 post-election violence, 2007, 2013, and 2017. And that name is the professional rejecter of outcome of election who coiled the 41 against 1 political genocide political mantra, and that is what we should actually mention, that people should accept the outcome of the election so that we can become peaceful, because the President did it once, and we
Honorable Mulu, Makali, Daktari.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me join my colleagues in appreciating the presentation. Although majority of us have said it was too long, but I think there were some good things, but there are also gaps. I think the good things have been said by my colleagues, so I will not dwell much on that. I'll just pick the highlights and then go focus slightly more on what missed in that speech, which I wish it was there. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of COVID-19 issues, I think the presentation was excellent, where the President focused on mitigating measures, and more so the economic stimulus package, which was offered by the government. The punchline under that one, Honorable Speaker, for me, was seizing opportunities during disasters. In terms of economic presentation, Honorable Speaker, I think I was very impressed with the presentation by the President as an economist, where he put the presentation in 2 categories: what he called economic acceleration and the big push. Under economic acceleration, Honorable Speaker, a number of initiatives were actually presented. And under the big push, Honorable Speaker, big projects like Lamfort, Kipebu Oil Terminal, and tarmacking of a number of roads was presented. To me, what I still not clear in my mind is the trickle-down effect of those developments. Have they reached Kenyans where they are? Do Kenyans feel them wherever they are? And the second point under that, Honorable Speaker, which I think we'll need to analyze, is the issue of are they skilled? Because I believe some of these initiatives have been very skilled when it comes to the way they are distributed in this country. And I think we need to think about fair distribution of some of these good initiatives. On the topic of political stabilization, Honorable Speaker, the President reminded us that the contentious issues which have been addressed by BBI are still outstanding. And we cannot bury our heads in the sand and assume they have been resolved. So it is our work as honorable members to pick from where he has left, either honorable members of this House or the next president of this country. Because unless these things are sorted out, the issue of national unity will be challenged. On matters which I thought, Honorable Speaker, should have given space to, it was unfortunate that in a speech of 249 pages, the President could not spare 1 page, matters corruption. Corruption is killing this country. How I wished that he spent much more time to tell Kenyans matters corruption for the time he has been in power, since 2013. The other issue, Honorable Speaker, which I think to me is critical, is the issue of public debt, Honorable Speaker.
Order.
The President came out clearly.
Order. Who is this member? Proceed.
Yeah, the President came out clearly and spoke about how he has doubled the GDP of this country in the 8 years he has been in power. But the President should have also reminded Kenyans that he has also multiplied public debt during the same period by 5 times. And I think this is critical, because when you multiply public debt by 5 times, it means you are burdening future generations of this country. And it is important Kenyans start thinking about how do we then make sure that we don't overburden our future generations And there's what we call intergenerational equity in terms of distribution of public debt. The third point, Honorable Speaker, which I think to me missed and is critical. This country is going through a very serious drought, as we are debating today. Very serious drought. And I'm sure Kenyans were expecting, as the president was addressing the nation in terms of state of the nation address, he should have taken time to discuss issues of drought. The fourth point, Honorable Speaker, for me, I think, which should have also been done by whoever was doing the speech, is other than analyzing on the basis of general growth and all that, there should also have been attempts to do what we call per capita analysis, because our population has also grown. So it would have been good to hear how is this impacting an individual, not the total population of about 48 million Kenyans. So to me, Honorable Speaker, despite the fact that the speech was long and there's some important things, but these four areas to me, I think, are areas we should also found some space in that 249-page speech so that Kenyans are able also to see what is being planned for their future. So, Honorable Speaker, I wish we had more time so that we really go into details, but you can see my time is running short. So, Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I want to say I support the President's speech.
Sorry, Honorable Daktari. Now we go to the Honorable Dr. Wamalwa.
I'm speaking next. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank His Excellency the President for coming to Parliament, Mr. Speaker, because of his constitutional obligation, particularly under Article 132 of the Constitution and Article 140. I mean Article 247. Mr. Speaker, this is a very critical moment. When the President came here, there were three main objectives. One was on matters of international obligation, which was very critical. And this, we've heard it from the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations, because Kenya does not exist in isolation. There are many treaties, conventions that must be ratified by this Parliament. Unfortunately, the report was not detailed. Maybe look into that and see to what extent. Second point, Mr. Speaker, that the President was specifically supposed to report on was particularly on Article 10 of the Constitution on national values and principles of governance. And this is the aspect of corruption. Because when you read Article 10 of the Constitution, it highlights the do's and the don'ts, issues of the rule of law. In this country, Mr. Speaker, the government has been disobeying court orders, Mr. Speaker. We are aware of the Miguna issue, and many that are still active in courts of law as we speak. So we expected the President, Mr. Speaker, to have mentioned on matters of the rule of law, because it's under Article 10 of the Constitution. Secondly, on the issues of corruption, Mr. Speaker, the President has been on record that we lose about 2 billion per day. This is serious, Mr. Speaker. When you come up with many projects, of course, we need to see the costing. Has it been effective? Has it been realistic? So on the element of corruption, Mr. Speaker, the President let us down, because this country is losing a lot of money because of the loopholes of corruption. And you cannot fight corruption, Mr. Speaker, in isolation. This is where judiciary comes in. This is where the investigation agencies comes in. This is where the prosecution comes in, Mr. Speaker. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, on matters of security. When you talk about security, particularly on Article 247, Mr. Speaker, security comes, food security is also an issue. In this country, Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of drought, Mr. Speaker. When you go to Kilifi right now, you go to Northeastern, even the parts of Ukambani, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans are suffering, Mr. Speaker. How I had wished the President to have gone further and highlighted more on the issues of drought. Because drought, Mr. Speaker, has been declared a national disaster. But what has the government done? What mechanism has the government put in place to mitigate these issues of drought? It was actually missing. Mr. Speaker, I saw the comparison of figures. I don't know why the President went to compare even the colonial days. I didn't know the significance, Mr. Speaker, unless there was something we need to analyze to see what value was that time of colonial days adding. And as my colleagues have put it, Mr. Speaker, you can be able to increase the issues of the GDP, yes, but the public debt in this country, Mr. Speaker, every Kenyan as you are born, there's a burden on your head, Mr. Speaker. When President Mwai Kibaki took over power in 2002, Mr. Speaker, at that time, he came up with the ERS, the Economic Recovery Strategy. And from there was wealth creation and employment, Mr. Speaker. From the ERS, it transformed to the Vision 2030. The time Kibaki was in power, Mr. Speaker, the percentage of the GDP in the public debt was 48%. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, the percentage of the public debt to the GDP, it is doing 80% plus, Mr. Speaker. We've seen the borrowing has gone up, even we are forced to increase the ceiling. So as you say you've increased the GDP, Mr. Speaker, you've also increased the public debt. And the net effect is zero. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to evaluate these figures. And we also expected His Excellency the President on matters of the general election. It is very, very critical. As we speak right now, we have a new monarch, minister, that the national, multi-sector or something, interfering with the independence of the IBC. And we salute IBC Chepkati for pulling out of that, because it affects the independence of the IBC. Kenyans want peaceful elections that are going to be free and fair and credible. And we call, in 2017, Mr. Speaker, a similar technical committee was in place. And the High Court pronounced itself that it was
No, I cannot. You should have planned yourself better, but you have had your say. So let's have the Honorable Dawood. And members, please plan yourself within the 5 minutes.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza nataka kumpongeza rais wetu Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta kwa ile alituletea jana. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, nikimuunga rais, na nashukuru wenzangu wale wamezungumza wakimuunga rais. Kwanza nimeshangaa leo Mheshimiwa Sankok akiwa anamsifu rais. Ile kitu singeamini kabisa kama singemuona hapa. Kama ni sauti ningefikiria ni mtu mwingine. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, vile rais alisema jana, nashindwa. Mtu ule ana macho haoni, ule ana masikio hasikii, kwamba miaka hizo zake miaka 8 ile kazi amefanya imepita ile imefanywa kwa zaidi ya miaka 100. Kama ni barabara, miaka 100 tulikuwa na barabara kilomita 11,000. Kwa wakati wa rais miaka 8 tumekuwa na kilomita zaidi ya 10,000. Ukienda pandi wa stima, imeunganishiwa stima nyingi kuliko ile ingeunganishwa miaka hizo zote. Si ati kusema hatuhitaji stima, kwamba hatuhitaji mabarabara, bado tunazihitaji hizo mabarabara na stima. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati rais alichukua uongozi mwaka wa 2013, Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati huo alisema kwamba kama hawatarudia kura tena, bilioni 6 ile ingetumika kwa kura itawekwa kwa uwezo fund. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna wajumbe wengine wale walikuwa kwa ile bunge iliyopita, waliambia watu wao kwamba hii pesa ni ya bure, msilipe. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna wajumbe wengine wale wako hapa na wale wamekuja wapya, wamekuta pesa ziko nyingi. Kama constituency yangu, Mheshimiwa Spika, tulikuwa wakati tulipatiwa ni milioni 16, lakini kwa saa hii tumepeana zaidi ya milioni 40. Na kama sio rais alikuwa amependekeza hiyo maneno, hatungekuwa na hizo pesa za uwezo. Pia Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati NHIF, wakati wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, NHIF imeweza kulipia wale wagonjwa zaidi ya 500,000 ama zaidi. Watu wakiwa wanafanyiwa operation, hata kwenda ngambo, NHIF inalipa. Kama sio Rais Uhuru Kenyatta ni nani? Nimesikia mwenzangu mheshimiwa moja akilalamika kwamba tumeongeza deni. Sikatai, deni imeongezwa, lakini ukimuuliza mheshimiwa deni imeongezwa imeenda wapi, atakwambia hajui, kwamba kwake anataka kujengewa, akienda kwa constituency yake anasema anataka maji, anataka stima, anataka barabara, anataka kila kitu. Kwani hiyo zitatoka bila pesa? Lazima pesa zikopwe ndio vitu zitengenezwe, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kuna wengine wanazungumza kwamba mambo ya corruption ama ulaghai, ndio. Lakini kama kuna watu wanafikiria wale wanatuchunga, wanaangalia mambo ya ufisadi, ndio wanataka kumfunga Kinoti, George Kinoti, DCI wetu, ati awekwe sheria ya kushika bunduki ile hana. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimesikia mambo ya IEBC ikiongewa kwamba IEBC ni tume uhuru. Pia Chief Justice ama Judiciary ni tume uhuru ama independent arm vile wangesema kwa kimombo. Mheshimiwa Spika, watu waachane na Chief Justice wetu Martha Koome, because ye wakati huu Chebukati analalamika, lakini wakati itatupiliwa hiyo kura itatupiliwa, atasema hakujua ni nini iliendelea. So Mheshimiwa Spika, ningesema tunampongeza rais na tutamuunga paka mwisho. Wale wanasema hajafanya kazi wangoje wapate wakati wao, na vile tunasema Mheshimiwa Kibaki alifanya kazi, hata Mheshimiwa Uhuru amefanya kazi ya kutosha, na tutamuunga paka mwisho. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Next is the Honorable Kabinga Wachira.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to applaud.
If that pleases you, then we will have Honorable Majimbo Kalasinga, Honorable Nyikal Wambura, and then Honorable Abdi Yusuf.
I hope, Honorable Speaker, it's noted that my minute is gone. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the speech by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, and applaud him for being candid in his speech, Honorable Speaker. Since yesterday, I think I have had two speeches that have really pleased me. One was by the President, and today I've also had one from Honorable Sankok, who have really decided to open up and not to live in the bondage of not being truthful, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I was keen to listen to the President's speech yesterday from the start to the end. And there are lessons that I learned from the speech, Honorable Speaker, and that's what I would want to dwell on, because he himself pronounced himself on the various things that the government has done. And one of the things that I really learned is about making timely choices and standing with those choices, Honorable Speaker. At a time that we had the challenges in this country, the President has had to make choices. And out of those choices, there are those that took advantage, Honorable Speaker, to pursue their own interests and depicted a picture of a president that was not making the right choices, Honorable Speaker. And I can say because of those choices, we did not end up in what we would have ended up in as a country, Honorable Speaker. That's why we managed even the corona. That's why, Honorable Speaker, the electoral violence that was emanating from the 2017 elections did not escalate to war in this country. And because it did not, people take it lightly, Honorable Speaker, and that's why some of us take it seriously, that at that time of challenge, the President was able to make a choice, and the choice was either to create havoc in this country or to reach out to one Honorable Raila Odinga to ensure that there was peace in this country, to ensure that what we are doing, we can have it. And as a conflict advisor myself, I can say that this country was not heading to the right direction. But out of the choice that the President made, we are able now to talk about what we have achieved as a country. Honorable Speaker, the President went ahead and converted the various challenges that we had during that time, including the electoral violence, including the corona that followed, into opportunities, Honorable Speaker, and he was creative enough to tell us what this country has done, highlighted a lot of successes in Kilifi, in Ketui, in Makueni, and in Ketui, Honorable Speaker, examples of the opportunities that we have had to take out of the pandemic that we were in. Honorable Speaker, the President went ahead and also highlighted some of the interventions that he has had to make. Again, these interventions were criticized by a section of this country, and people really wanted the president to fail. And we thank God that he stood by his choices, stood by his interventions. That's why we are where we are, Honorable Speaker, because out of the criticisms, if the president listened to those that were criticizing him, I think this country, Honorable Speaker, would be somewhere else and not where we are. We had interventions, Honorable Speaker, that touched on the tax reductions, interventions that touched on economic stimulus activities in various sectors, including tea, and I can attest to the fact that even lice sector had interventions, Honorable Speaker, that really helped our farmers to get out of the problems that were in, Honorable Speaker. There were many things that the president talked about, and what we need, security, Honorable Speaker. Most people in this country have never sat to ask themselves the problems that we have had, the threats from Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and other outroot groups. How did we manage it in the midst of corona pandemic, Honorable Speaker? And if people can get into that thinking, then they will understand and know how much the president has had to put in interventions in the right way, including motivating the security sector, Honorable Speaker. It is therefore important as a country to stop taking advantage of the problems that we have, to perpetuate politics of self-interest that are unsustainable, and more so taking advantage of the youth that was
Honorable Majimbo Kalasinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will support the speech that was well planned by His Excellency the President, Mr. Speaker, yesterday. Mr. Speaker, when I keenly listened to the speech of the President, Mr. Speaker, I also observed, Mr. Speaker, that on the Speaker's gallery, Mr. Speaker, were ministers who must have heard even the same speech, Mr. Speaker, from the President. Mr. Speaker, when you see the vision of the President, Mr. Speaker, its main is at the heart of the Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, here is my concern, that when the President has a very good vision, Mr. Speaker, for assisting the farmers in this country, Mr. Speaker, by allowing farmers, Mr. Speaker, in soya sugar, Mr. Speaker, to be paid their money, and releasing 500 million, Mr. Speaker. Last 3 weeks, Mr. Speaker, the minister, Mr. Speaker, up to now has not given the farmers, Mr. Speaker, their money. Mr. Speaker, it pains when the President has given a heart of the people, when the President wants Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, to enjoy the life in this country, by giving them, when we were having the Mashujaa in Kirinyaga, Mr. Speaker, he said that farmers in this country, sugarcane farmers, must be given their money. Mr. Speaker, up to now, we want to hear, Mr. Speaker, and I was very happy when the President was addressing him, Mr. Speaker, the Minister Honorable Munya was up there, Mr. Speaker. We want the farmers in Zoya, as I talk now, to receive their money because they were given, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, without forgetting, security. His Excellency, Mr. Speaker, talked very well about the security. I was impressed, Mr. Speaker, when he said that we must build houses, Mr. Speaker, for the police in this country. Mr. Speaker, it was well planned, Mr. Speaker. But the only problem, Mr. Speaker, when you do that, Mr. Speaker, the problem of this security, Mr. Speaker, is how we recruit them, Mr. Speaker. Recruitment of police officers in this country, Mr. Speaker, has remained a preserve of the rich, Mr. Speaker. How they come to become police officers, Mr. Speaker, is questionable. If we go by looking at the fastest poor athletes who want to become police officers, Mr. Speaker, who qualify by the right way, Mr. Speaker, in this country is now a nightmare. As I thank the speech of the President, Mr. Speaker, for exercising his mandate, Mr. Speaker, as President, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at how the President was trying to prioritize the coffee cherry fund, Mr. Speaker, in his own planning as a President, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the coffee cherry fund has never come to assist a coffee farmer. This money is supposed, Mr. Speaker, to assist the farmer, pluck the coffee, grade the coffee, transport the coffee to the factories, Mr. Speaker. But you find that those who give this money, Mr. Speaker, now go and give that the tail end, Mr. Speaker. That they ask you how many kilograms have you supplied, so that you get the money, Mr. Speaker. Then what is the purpose of that money? Mr. Speaker, when you look at the President, in his vision, Mr. Speaker, about power, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The member for Kebuchai, I can see the intense and spirit of you want to debate on this, but I'm not a Mr. Speaker.
Oh,
You should notice change of seats.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I'm happy that you have changed the card when I was on speech, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, now. And I hope Madam Speaker will be kind to me, Madam Speaker, for my one lost minute, Madam Speaker.
No, you were out of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
Madam Speaker, I was not keen. I apologize. Now, Madam Speaker, now that I've seen you well, this point, Madam Speaker, of the way the President was talking that we have moved from position 12, Madam Speaker, as the 12th richest country in Africa, to position 6 in Africa, Madam Speaker. You realize now, Madam Speaker, that when you talk of that and people on the ground have no money, Mr. Speaker, they might not agree with the President. So there are people, Madam Speaker, who want to fail the President of this country. And these are his cabinet ministers, Mr. Speaker. They must wake up and agree with the vision of the President, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, finally, when you look at power, the connectivity, Madam Speaker, to power in this country. Madam Speaker, when you come and see there are some areas in my area like Kabuchai, Chebukwan, and Muyeke, Madam Speaker, they have dropped poles, they have put wires, Madam Speaker, and there is no power. You find that a lot of resource has been put on the ground, and they are not put into use, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I must have been the happiest man yesterday to have got the first address of the President in my lifetime, Madam Speaker, because he's only 7 months in the House, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for all that I've done, and I want to support this speech, Madam Speaker. This only comes here, Madam Speaker, when the President exemplarily told us that he accepted the results, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have only one person in this country who doesn't accept results, Madam Speaker, when elections are held.
Very well. It's no wonder the honorable member for Kabuchai could not notice the difference between Mr. Speaker and Master Speaker. But you've spoken very well, the member. Thank you so much. Let me have the member for Seme constituency.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to support the motion to record thanks for the President's State of the Nation address. Madam Speaker, let the truth be said, the President did recognize and elucidate very clearly the challenges that the nation is facing, and also came out with clear responses, some of whose results we have seen. He covered the area of the areas of the challenge of COVID, the state of devolution with the funding that has been increased, the infrastructure, the manufacturing, even the improvement of health, the reviving of the dead asset, which he referred to as dead capital, Kenya Meat Commission, meter gauge railways, Kisumu and Nanyuki, the ports, the tannery in Athi River, and the marine processing in Mombasa. He clearly elucidated the big four in infrastructure, the roads, the ports, the focus on universal health coverage, and manufacturing and housing. He also actually did look at the connectivity within Africa, putting in place structures that will facilitate the movement of people and goods across the continent. That is extremely important. The Mombasa-Bagamoyo Road, the road to the northeastern areas connecting with Ethiopia, the roads to the Central African countries that are landlocked. But, Madam Speaker, I'll focus on two. One is the challenge of COVID. I must appreciate that this country handled the dilemma that we are faced with the challenge of COVID. Either to have lockdowns and other containment measures and hurt the economy severely, or keep it open so that the economy goes on and people will die. I think that was a great challenge that this country faced. And I must appreciate the delicate balance that actually this government put in place of opening on and off and measuring the containment measures so that the economy can go on and the health of the people are taken into consideration. Madam Speaker, I must also appreciate the opportunities that were recognized during the pandemic, particularly the improvement in the health structure, the number of ICU beds that have been put in place, the opportunity to have oxygen. This, even after the pandemic, will be a great improvement towards the universal health coverage that we are looking at. We also must appreciate, Madam, the business opportunities were seen during this pandemic. The manufacturing, to mention just a few, of needles and protective equipment. Again, that was a great achievement in a difficult situation. And it's also important we note that actually overall, the economy eventually did grow. I think that's something we must appreciate. And the vaccination efforts that have been made, that are still going on, even with the challenge of the new variant, I think vaccination is still important, and the availability of the vaccines now. I think, in my view, that was a great thing that came in the president's speech. The second and the final one I want to mention is the realization that the president brought out that for this country to progress and develop, we must have unity and peace. And the issue of the handshake and the BBI, and the issues in the BBI that we need to address, the need for the feeling of all people are represented, the need to have a mandatory increase in the county funds, not just to leave it that it is not less than 15% and leave it to the whims of the people, but put a minimum that we think the country needs. And it says, Madam Speaker, when they shook hands, and I saw this also in 2008, it is amazing how two people shaking hands in a place just stops all the violence that is there. Therefore, expanding the executive so that everybody
Members, I must remind you that at one point we don't speak to ourselves, that on limitation of debates and the resolution of the House that was resolved on the Wednesday, February 10th, 2021, that notwithstanding provision standing order number 974, and of course in furtherance of the provision standing order number 246, the House ordered that the debate on motion, the address of the president, be limited to no more than 30 minutes for the mover. Of course, it was moved, 20 minutes for the leader of minority party and 10 minutes for the minutes each to the chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs to speak to the report submitted under the Article 1321C1 of the Constitution. And this is related to the realization of the national values and principles of governance. Then for the members who are debating, honorable members, to that resolution, that we will have 5 minutes for any other member speaking and 10 minutes before the expiry of the time the mover shall be called upon to close. So members, for this, we just put into attention so that you don't fall with a lot of information for debaters. The honorable members, you have only 5 minutes. Plan yourself. Let me have the member for Kamkunji, Honorable Abdi Yusuf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. I stand here to contribute to the President's State of the Nation address. I want to thank the President for his speech and for executing his constitutional requirement and obligation. I want to point out the key areas that he has spoken about in terms of infrastructure, roads, railways, ports, energy and electrification. And I want to say that, in fact, the President's administration has done very well. He has laid the foundation for Kenya's industrial development. And this would be one of the key legacies of the President and his vision to leave behind a developed infrastructure that would lift this country up in its economic development, because infrastructure is a key element in any nation's development. I also like to applaud the President's contribution in terms of health, the major achievements that we have made under difficult conditions during the pandemic, COVID pandemic. And I must say that here we have seen our ability to do things for ourselves, our ability to be independent and develop and meet the challenges of this particular crisis. And at one point, I remember the predictions that Africans would be the most affected by this particular pandemic. Some of them were predicting millions of Africans dying as a result of the COVID pandemic. But somehow, because of the interventions and the policies of our government, we've been able to sustain our ability to keep ourselves up to speed and mitigate the devastating effects of that. So move away from the dependency that we depend on medicines from outside countries. And I was very pleased to know that the President mentioning that, in fact, by early next year, we will be able to produce our own vaccine. And this is a major, major step forward as far as the development of our country is concerned. On education also, I welcome the President's interventions and the government's intervention in education, in making education accessible, and to allow more and more Kenyans to be able to go to primary, secondary, and university education more than any other time. I also like to praise the President on his efforts for national reconciliation, national cohesion. The past, working towards with his former adversary, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the handshake has really made a significant impact on the cohesion, the stability, and the peace of this country. I also fully agree with the President that the perennial political driven violence, the chaotic election campaigns, the permanent political campaigning is a threat to peace and the security and is damaging to our economic development and well-being. We must learn how from our past and be able to develop a more civilized way of conducting our political campaigns and elections. And I support the President's efforts in making sure that we reach those goals. The President has also done well in Africa and international affairs. He has effectively played his role as the chief diplomat of the Republic of Kenya. Under his tenure, Kenya has become a rising regional power and a major diplomatic player on the African and the global stage. The President has played a big role making sure that we are members of the Security Council for this term. He has been a chair of the Africa Peace and Security Council. He has also been the chair of the Africa and Pacific Summit. And he has also played a big role in European Union relations as well. Peace and security, bringing the continent together.
The Honorable Member for Trans Nzoia County, the Honorable Nangabo Janet, you have the floor.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii kuchangia kwa hotuba wa Mheshimiwa Rais. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nimshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais kwa hotuba wake kulingana na katiba yetu ya nchi hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, nitakusia sehemu kadhaa zile nilipendezwa nazo kulingana na hotuba wa rais. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nianze kusema kwamba tumekuwa na changamoto ya mambo ya COVID katika nchi yetu hii ya Kenya na hata ulimwengu kwa jumla, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi namshukuru rais kwa sababu kulingana na serikali yake alijitahidi kuhakikisha kwamba anahudumia wananchi wa nchi hii yetu na kuzuia maambukizi tele kulingana na COVID. Mheshimiwa Spika, alibuni sehemu nyingi za kuhakikisha kwamba hawa wenye wanaathirika na hata wale hawajaathirika wamepata nafasi ya kujipima na hata kupewa shindano ya kuzuia haya maambukizi. Mheshimiwa Spika, cha pili pia nilipendekezwa nacho ni kwa sababu ya elimu. Wale walimu waliajiriwa katika muhula wake, Mheshimiwa Spika, unaona kiwango hicho ni kikubwa mno, na sisi pia tunataka tumuunge mkono na tumshukuru kwa sababu watoto wetu wale walikuwa wamehitimu katika nafasi ya kukuwa walimu katika nchi hii wamepewa nafasi zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, tena nimshukuru rais kwa sababu ya mambo ya wakulima. Amekuzia mambo ya chai, wale walikuwa wanapata pesa duni, lakini saa hizi hivi hawa wakulima wa chai, Mheshimiwa Spika, sehemu zangu za huko Trans Nzoia, kwa sababu ndiyo mbolea ilipeanwa kwa bei ile inahitajika. Lakini saa hizi sehemu hizo za kutoka Trans Nzoia, Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nikuambie kwamba wakulima pia wanahitaji usawa na hawa wakulima wengine kama wale wa miwa. Mheshimiwa Rais alisema kwamba wamepewa fedha. Nataka niseme wanastahili kuongezewa fedha zingine kwa sababu wakulima kutoka upande wa Western, Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niseme wameumia mno na hata watoto wao wengi hawaendi shule kwa sababu ya hii mambo ya sukari. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, kile nilipendezwa nacho pia ni mambo ya maternity, wamama kujifungua katika chumba vyetu katika hospitali zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nishukuru kwa sababu kuna hata wamama wale wako na matatizo, lakini ulimsikia rais akisema kwamba wale walikuwa wanapewa hata 2,500 imesongeshwa na ikakuwa kwamba wale wanalazwa wanapata shilingi 30,000. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niseme kwamba hiyo imenifurahisha kwa sababu wamama kutoka hata sehemu zangu wengine wamesaliwa kwa mazingira yasiyo sahihi, na hata pia watoto wetu wale wanapandikwa mimba kama bado wako wachanga walikuwa wanapata hiyo shida. Mheshimiwa Spika, na saa hizi ninafurahi kwa sababu wanapata nafuu. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia niongelee pesa za wazee kwa sababu kule ninatoka kuna wazee wale walikuwa hawapati pesa, licha hawachapata wote, lakini kwa wale wamepata, Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nishukuru na niambie rais kwamba ataendelea kufanya yale yamepaki. Na leo Mheshimiwa Spika, nishukuru rais hata kwa kusema kwamba Nakuru pia ikuwe jiji kuu. Yaani hiyo inamaanisha inaendelea, hata sisi wale tunatumia barabara hiyo tunasema kwamba sasa tuko na jiji kuu katika eneo hilo. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, nishukuru kwa kunipa nafasi hii kuunga hotuba wa rais mkono. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Asante kwa kuunga hotuba ya rais mkono. Members, let me have the member for Samburu East, the member representing the people of Samburu East, to have the floor. Honorable Lake Montar Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me a chance to say something about the President's speech. Madam Speaker, it was a very long speech which has cut across all sectors in our country. Madam Speaker, the president made himself clear about our territorial boundaries, and I was very happy when he said not an inch more or less. That is a very encouraging and inspiring speech. Madam Speaker, the president's speech elaborated so much on infrastructure, the road network. He mentioned that there are so many roads that are started during his term, which is very good, Madam Speaker. The only thing, Madam Speaker, it could be this development that we are realizing are not really equally distributed in the country. That is the only thing we can say, that other parts also need to realize this development. Madam Speaker, there are also issues to do with insecurity in some parts of this country. And I think the president failed to tell the nation what will be done in some parts of the country where there are so many insecurity issues, like the Sukuta Valley, Madam Speaker. There are so many lives being lost in that part of the country. And I think, Madam Speaker, the president ought to have elaborated that issue of insecurity. And even Laikipia, Madam Speaker, there are so many issues happening in Laikipia, and I think we have witnessed a lot of livestock killing in Laikipia, and I think the president could have at least said something about that killing of animals. And just to say, Madam Speaker, some part of Kenya is seriously affected by the drought. And on top of what the president said, that people are receiving some cash transfers, but Madam Speaker, on the ground, things are really different. There are very few people who are benefiting. And if maybe the government will not intervene, I think, Madam Speaker, there are so many people who are suffering because of the drought. And even the issue of health, there are some part of this country that people are not getting health services. And I think what I have heard from the president's speech, that some parts of this country are benefiting a lot. But maybe those who plans for this development, I think they have to consider all parts of Kenya